We made it happen. Jimmy was an incredible success. I don't know where he is. I got to find him. Gosh, I don't. Oh.
Oh, yeah, George. Oh, George.
Right
George.
here. Yeah.
We did it, brother.
Yes, we
hey,
did.
Thanks to Dan. You know what? And in the ring with Dan and Benny. Hey, brother, man, he's about the most cat. I just love him to death. I love you. Thanks for having me. Hey, you're the best. I'm telling you, brother. In the ring with
Dan and Benny.
Yeah.
We love you. Thank you so much.
Dan.
Mwah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Dan and Benny in the Ring. I'm Dan Spasciano, joined as always by the playa himself, Benny Scala. Benny, how you doing, buddy?
Dan, even though it was only 41 degrees this morning in sunny Florida, my Yankees will be playing baseball in Clearwater this Sunday. So old age and bad hooker jokes aside, all is well in my world.
Yeah, well, we said it last week. As much as we love the Super Bowl, that's really the signal of the end of football season and the start of baseball season, because the pitchers and catchers are reported last week, and now we can really get the fun going.
Absolutely.
And as an Orioles fan, I do hope your Yankees do just as well as they did last year.
Actually, they got them, I think, at I'm trying to think, they're like plus 800. They're actually ahead of the Orioles, but behind the Astros. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, second best record in the league, and most of the team returns and still no respect. Like Rodney, no respect at all.
I think Giancarlo will pull a muscle eating a steak or something like that.
Yeah, you'll be all right. But all baseball references aside, we got them out of the way early. Benny, we got a great show planned for tonight. We've got a returning guest. You always love to talk about your slashes, your man of many hats. We've got one tonight and a returning guest. Like I said, somebody we had a lot of fun talking to last time. Why don't you tell everybody who the third face joining us this evening is?
Dan, this is one of my all-time favorite guests. And, one of the many things I've learned in the 3+ years we've been doing this is that some of the best heels in the wrestling business are actually some of the best people in the real world. And our guest is truly one of them. Whether you know him as Downtown Bruno, Uptown Bruno, or Harvey Whippleman, and whether you loved him or hated him, one thing's for sure, you never ignored him. And I'm very happy to welcome Bruno Lauer back to Dan and Benny in the Ring. Bruno, welcome, my friend.
Hey, I always enjoy being on the show with y'all. I'm enjoying it already. I'm not a baseball fan because we don't have a major league team in Memphis, so everything y'all were talking about up till now went completely over my head. We've got a professional basketball team in Memphis, the Memphis State Tigers. Then we've also got the Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you know what I mean.
I do.
I mean, you talk about a losing streak. As soon as we get John Morant back, what happens? He gets hurt instantly. I mean, gosh. So that's heartbreaking. But hey, I want to plug Bluff City Wrestling, which is the real Memphis Wrestling.
Oh,
it's
nice.
It's a promotion in the Memphis area. It's on TV in Memphis. I'm helping out there as the senior referee and helping out with stage duties. And it's a great organization. And I just want to tell everybody that's listening to this and watching this to please go to the YouTube channel for Bluff City Wrestling and subscribe to it. And you'll see me on there refereeing. I can still go for an old man. And there's a lot of young, great talent on there. Johnny Dotson, Bullwhip Ballard, Brody Hawk, Big Chad. I mean, a bunch of great guys. And Danny B. Good Jr., DJ Brown. So that's my plug for Bluff City Wrestling. And I'll plug the other organization later. Towards the end that I worked for around Memphis as well. But in the meantime, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bruno, some things are on a need-to-know basis, and this is something I needs to know. So we're officially on the road to WrestleMania, and this is the time of the year when everyone speculates about who's going to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, many names are being bandied about, including, of course, yours, but there is one in particular with everybody saying, and no, I'm not talking about L.A. Knight. I'm talking about Bulldog Bob Brown. What do you think his chances are for induction?
Well, I enjoyed the interview, fellas. Thanks a million. We'll see you next time.
Jeez.
But Bulldog Bob Brown, somebody I worked with in Central States territory back in the early to mid 80s on several occasions, has to be, if not the worst, one of the worst people to ever actually get a push in our profession. He was terrible. His interviews sucked. His work sucked. His looks, they looked like Sergeant Carter from Gomer Pyle, but probably Frank Sutton, who played Sergeant Carter, probably would have been a better in-ring performer than Bulldog Bob Brown.
He would cut better promos too.
What's that?
I said he would cut better promos too, Sergeant Carter.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, yeah, Bulldog Bob Brown is, you know, and I'm saying this for jokes. I know you're kidding. But I was going to say, my respect for your knowledge of wrestling just plummeted.
Well, I was going to say, Bruno, that I probably have a better chance of waking up next to Tom Brady's ex-wife than Bulldog Bob Brown does of having, of being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Is that fair enough?
Yeah. And by the way, she's here with me tonight. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell her I said hello. I'll see her next week.
Danny and Ben said hello, Gazelle. Okay.
He really, I mean, he looked like, Lane 7, your pizza's ready. Right. I just couldn't, I mean, I've been a wrestling fan since 1968 and I've watched thousands and thousands of matches, and that's one guy I just can't get. I'm thinking like he must know somebody because he looked like he was allergic to the gym. He really couldn't speak very eloquently. His work was, and you said he wasn't a very good person. So what am I missing?
A terrible person. He was a liar. We were in Fort Scott. I believe it was Fort Scott, Kansas. I can't remember the exact town, but I believe it was Fort Scott. Bob Geiger wasn't there that night, so Bob Brown was taking care of the event, and he told me, I was managing Earthquake Fairs against Bulldog that night, and he said when I come up in the apron at some point, he was going to headbutt me. He wanted me to get color, so I did. So the next day we got to TV. And I was all gaffed up and everything. And, Bob Geiger goes, what happened? Why did you do that? I said, Bulldog told me to. And he went, I never did any such thing.
Oh, geez.
Oh, man.
After he told me to do it.
Right.
So, yeah. So I wasn't a fan. And I always say this about people, whether I liked them or didn't like him or hated him. I'm not glad he's dead. I don't wish him dead. And I'm sorry for his family or whatever that he's dead. It's not a dying offense, it's like, if he's a child molester or a rapist or something, but I'm not happy he's dead. I'm not that type of person, but I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like I shed any tears either. I'm just going to be truthful.
It's really funny because that title, that Central States Championship, was a very prestigious title. And you look at the names of the people that won that thing. It's like a who's who. Like it could be a Hall of Fame all in itself, but then you see like Bob Brown won it 13 times. Like what the hell?
Yeah. Cause I was privileged enough to manage Central States champion Earthquake Ferris and also the Central States tag team champions, two guys that are really dear to my heart. One of them's no longer with us is the Batten twins.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I love those guys.
Brad and Bart, right? I think they were.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Bradley J. Batten left us a few years ago, and it's a shame. I love those guys. Matter of fact, when I went, they were always baby faces in the Central States. When I came in, they went to Bob Geigel and Rip Rogers, who was helping with the booking at the time, and specifically wanted to turn heel so I could be their manager. And we traveled together the whole time I was in the territory for that run. And we got along great. They turned heel. We got over well together. We were great. You know what sucks? Those guys were ahead of their time. Because at that time, WWE was using the Barbarian and the Warlord and the Road Warrior, the big U,
right.
What was it? Akeem and Boss Man, whatever. Big huge guys, John Studd and Bundy. If the Batten twins were in their prime right now, they would absolutely, if not be in the main roster of WWE, they'd definitely be in NXT because they were, nowadays smaller guys are more, used in the business. So it's just a shame they were ahead of their times. They were hell of a team.
They were a very well functioning tag team though.
Absolutely. And we had a great time together. We had a good vibe together. I don't really like to travel with too many people. I travel alone. I enjoy traveling with them. I always enjoyed traveling with the King, Jerry Lawler, my mentor. I enjoyed traveling with The Rock, of course. And then the guy I traveled with for the longest, Steve Lombardi, my good friend, Brooklyn Brawler. We traveled together for 30 years. But the times I was with the Battens, though, we got along really, really well. And I really, really hate that we lost Bradley. Well, I didn't mean to bring the interview down.
No,
right.
You're fine. It's actually funny. You mentioned Lawler and your shirt. Benny does another show. We license him out like merchandise, called Wrestling Remembered. And the last, correct me if I'm wrong, Benny, the last episode y'all did was on gimmick matches.
Yes.
And I mean, Bruno, nobody did gimmick matches like Memphis. Memphis had them all, loser leaves town, hair versus hair, etc. Not just Memphis, but just your time in wrestling in general got me thinking, did you have a favorite gimmick match?
I know I had a least favorite when I was Harvina and won the WWF Ladies Championship. We set the business back 30 years or more. But
well, let me ask you something just out of morbid curiosity, because we joked about a little bit about it on your first appearance. You realize you set the stage, for all the occasional head shakes that the Harvina brings on. If it wasn't for Harvina, we never would have had Santina winning the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal. Yep. So I mean, you were a trailblazer.
I apologize. That's I got the first DUI.
Nice. How's the old saying go? The nice being the nicest guy in prison. It doesn't mean much.
Right.
No.
Right.
But other than
athletes nowadays that talk about all the big controversy, which I'm not a political guy. I'm not going to get into nothing political or whatever. But the controversy now is that the transgender athletes want to compete with the opposite sex, whatever. Who's the first one?
True, like I said, you were a trailblazer, man. Well, I guess man ahead of your time might not be the right term for it, but man ahead of your time. But you mentioned, to kind of continue with your original thought, you talked about traveling with Jerry. You also talked about traveling with The Rock, and you mentioned having a special relationship with. All right, I guess I can say The Rock now because Dwayne Johnson owns that moniker. But he's been all over the news recently. He's back, as it were. I'm curious what your thoughts are to see The Rock, and I mean vest, jaw jacking with the crowd. Like, this is textbook Hollywood Rock. He's back in the ring. He's appearing on TV, regular basis, cutting epic promos. So two things. One, how do you feel about seeing The Rock back on TV? And how do you feel about just how easy it was, almost like, they say sometimes, some people, it's like you never left, how smooth it was for him to go back to being a heel?
Well, I mean, he's one of the best there ever was. And, not being in these meetings or whatever, I don't know if that was planned or not, or that as smart and slick minded as he is for the business, if that was legitimately organic, that the people just turned on him for, because of what's been going on in the stories and whatnot, then he's very, very, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. He just pivoted on the spot. Like if the play don't go right in the NFL, what do? They call an audible, right? Well, I believe he just pivoted. And I mean, he's one of the best. There's no question, no discussion, not even no debate. He's one of the top 10, if not the top 5 of all time, as far as the talent. And, we're not going to get into the little semantics. Well, this guy has a better arm drag, or this guy. Let's talk about who drew the most money. That's who's the best worker.
Bottom line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like number 1 is Hulk Hogan. No ifs, ands, buts, or maybes. And Dwayne himself will tell you that. Period. But I'm gonna tell you what even means more to me than knowing that my dear friend is back doing something, at least for the time being, that he loves to do. That got him his foot in the door of the wonderful life that he has. excuse me, he was the master of ceremonies, or whatever you call it, at NASCAR, Daytona 500 the other day. And you can look this up on the YouTube. He did an interview with the NASCAR people before the, Fox, I should say the Fox Sports people before the event. And he mentioned who bought him his first car, his good friend Downtown Bruno. And he talked about it and called my name out 4 or 5 different times on Fox Sports News. And that's what means a lot to me. This other stuff is just business. That, the personal thing. And I mean, he's one of the 5 people in this world I would die for, and I really mean that. And I really mean that. And, Lawler's another one. It's very emotional to me. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. He's been instrumental in my life. He's never forgot our friendship. Even though he's in the stratosphere, he's still on my level as far as a person.
Friendship, yeah. So, Bruno, before I ask my next question, I want to go back to the gimmick matches real quick, because Memphis was literally the king of gimmick matches. But one I wanted to drill into in particular was the loser leave town match. And as far as what, it's not really a necessary match now because of the way the business is structured, but it was so important back then because somebody could lose a loser leave town match, and one or two things happened. One was they had a gig, say in Mid-South or Portland or World Class, so they had to go for a while, and that's how you got them. That's how you wrote them out of the the territory, or right. they'd stay and wear a ridiculous mask like Jimmy Valiant when he was Charlie Brown from out of town. If you can just tell me, those gimmick matches meant so much to the territory, didn't they?
Well, yeah, and I'm going to tell you, for the younger fans that might not know this, I'll just give a brief thing alluding back to what you just said, the loser leave town match, which was a big deal. Years ago, as y'all know, but like I said, younger people may not realize this, before WWE and these other organizations that I won't name, but other ones that are nationwide or worldwide or whatever, every part of the country had its own territory, we called it, a regional. Like even WWE, what used to be WWWF.
And it was Northeast.
Northeast, New York, Connecticut,
Maryland,
Jersey,
yeah.
Or whatever. Okay, Memphis territory. Like you said, Portland, World Class, Kansas City, Minneapolis, San Antonio, Dallas, Tampa, Alabama, the Carolinas,
Georgia, yeah.
Louisiana, whatever. There was territory after territory. So to go back to comment on what you said, yeah. Like if I was getting ready to leave, either by choice or because, Lawler or whatever said, man, you need to move on for a while, you're getting stale. Whatever, I would make some calls and get a starting date in Alabama or in Louisiana or wherever I would go. Or it could be the opposite thing. Maybe I wanted to go for whatever reason. So loser leave town, downtown Bruno against so-and-so. And if I lose or my guy loses, I have to leave. So then, like you said, I'd go to that Continental, which was Alabama. I went to Kansas City, wherever I went. Well, nobody in Memphis territory could see that TV because it was regional. So they didn't know. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you said, like WWE loser leave town.
Right.
Well, then I'd have a ridiculous mask or, whatever. But it was just, yeah, if I'd leave Memphis, I'd go to somewhere else. And then I'd come back to Memphis in 9 months or a year or whatever they said the terms were. But the other thing is, too, there's ways around everything in our business. You can make logic. Like if they said downtown Bruno has to leave for a year, maybe they needed me to come back after 6 months, or I wanted to come back after 6 months. They could work something out like, okay, if Mr. X beats Jerry the King Lawler, then downtown Bruno's suspension is lifted. He could do anything. But,
always, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a good story about that. I'm glad you brought that up. Here's the deal. And I had to preface this about the territory. So the younger listeners or viewers, whatever, want to understand this. In 1987, they were going to do a deal where Billy Travis lost a loser leave town match. I'm the one that caused it as the bad guy, villain manager. He was going against Pat Tanaka. And I don't remember how I did it, but I caused Billy Travis the match. He had to leave town. Well, they already had him a starting date in San Antonio, the Southwest Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was all set to go down there, whatever. So we did the loser leave town. He lost the match, was going there. That week, They closed down. Southwest closed down. So Billy was a man without a country. He was leaving to go to work there. And then there was no more there to go to work to. Oh, crap. We just, we were working a deal. And they brought somebody up from there. It was almost like a trade, like they do in NFL or NBA or whatever.
Right.
I don't remember who it was they brought up from San Antonio to come to Memphis. I can't remember, to be honest with you. But anyway, it was like, oh my God, we just screwed Billy Travis unintentionally. So what they did was they had him come back as the BT Express. BT, Billy Travis.
Yep.
He had a mask on it, had BT on it. And of course, everybody knew it was him. And me, the bad guy manager, of course, I'm frustrated as hell. That's Billy Travis. Come on, Eddie Marlin. You know that's Billy Travis, blah, blah, blah. So they ended up finally working the deal. And it really got over good, thankfully, because it wasn't like we were trying to deceive the people, that we wanted them to know it was Billy Travis. And it was like sticking it up my butt, So we worked the deal. And Eddie Marlin finally said, you can rip the mask off of him, prove it's Billy Travis, then he's out of here. So we turned Paul Diamond heel, who was his big friend, big Billy friend, tag team partner, whatever. I bribed him with some money or what. I can't remember exactly how we went into it. But he ended up ripping the mask off of him. I gave Paul Diamond all the money, and then Billy Travis was out of there. So they did a real emotional deal where Jeff Jarrett, who was, TV-wise, and maybe real life-wise, I don't know, but TV-wise, Billy Travis's best friend. So he had a thing. If he could wrestle Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond by himself, and he didn't have to beat him, but if he could go without being beat for, I think it was 10 minutes maybe, I can't remember, then Billy would be reinstated. Of course, Jeff fought like, cats and dogs. It was like a real valiant effort. He hung in there for 10 minutes,
Right.
Got his hand raised. Billy Travis got to come back. And people were like crying. It was like, that's back before everything was out in the open, and people were literally crying.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's funny you brought that up. That was huge. That was really, and we drew big money.
Yeah.
It's funny. I didn't mean to cut you off, Benny. I'm sorry. I remember when he was having kind of his career renaissance when Hulk Hogan went back to the WWE for the second time, and they did the whole Mr. America storyline where he got Hulk Hogan got fired, and then Mr. America came in,
Right.
and it was funny because how, like, reading some of this was the early days of like message boards, how many people thought that was such a, like we're acting like that was a unique concept they've never seen before. The veteran under the mask, everyone knows who it is, but we have to pretend like we don't. And it was funny, like, that's like Benny said, that's, out of downtown from out of town, that's all these, giant machine. That's all these people we know who it is, but we can't, and it was, I don't know, just always funny to me how it had been so long since people had seen it,
Right. And I can't say that the Billy Travis one was the first one. It probably wasn't, to be
Right.
honest with you. But it's still, in Memphis, it was huge.
It
really,
worked.
It really worked.
Yep. Bruno, that's a perfect segue into the next question, because I wanted to stay old school for a minute and talk about the old studio wrestling shows. So to me, it still is amazing how epic moments were created in a TV studio. I mean, how many people were in the show in Memphis? Maybe a couple of hundred. And all the storylines were created and advanced. And how many tickets were sold to the Mid-South Coliseum just in front of that broadcast booth with Lance Russell and Dave Brown, and whether it be an interview, a sneak attack, a swerve, and back then there was no creative writing staff like they have now. They just had the promoter and a booker. So my question is, how is so much created with just so little resources? It's amazing to me.
You know what? Because here's the thing. I've said this 1,000 times about the business. It's, first of all, it takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master. But the other thing is, people have taken something that wasn't broken and tried to fix it. Now it's got to the point where it's just too far gone. We can never get it back to like it was. It was so basic back then. We didn't need all this extra stuff. It was so basic, like the emotions. Like Billy Travis was Jeff Jarrett's best friend, and we screwed him over, and Jeff fought tooth and nail to get him back and things like that. You know, we had people crying, not only for that, but here's the thing. And Bill Dundee said this on an interview he did once, and he's right. The people believed in us, and what we did on the studio wrestling because we believed in it. See, we would work ourselves into a shoot back then. You know, I never disrespected the business. And I'm never going to sit here on your great podcast or anybody else's and lay out in intricate detail how we do what we do and spoil the magic. But back then, you know, like what we're doing now would be unheard of. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If we protected the business.
Right.
And I might not be able to convince people everything we're doing is real, but I can convince them I'm real, you know. And I mean, I worked myself into a shoot. And, you know, I appreciate what you said earlier that I'm a very nice guy. Thank you. And I am. Bruno Lauer's a nice guy. And when Downtown Bruno's a babyface, Downtown Bruno's a nice guy too. But by God, back in those days, when I was making my living and helping other people make their living by being a heel, Downtown Bruno's the worst son of a bitch you'll ever meet in your life. And I'm going to make sure that everybody understands. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, in a grocery store yell at an old lady and say, I hope you die. I mean, that's cheap eat. I'm going to be cocky. Yeah, I'll give you the autograph. Be the best one you ever had. You know, I'll be a heel, but a cocky one. But by God, I'm going to be a heel. I'm not going to be a heel trying to wink at the people and make them think, oh, I'm just pretending. We invested ourselves into what we were doing. And in turn, I believe the people invested themselves into it. That's what it was. And it was reality based. People could understand that. Like if 2 or 3 guys beat the shit out of, you know, Doug Gilbert, left him laying in a pool of his own blood, when Eddie Gilbert came running out of the back with like just trunks on it, now like a towel around him, and you know, still soap on him, and in barefoot because he was in the shower. You know, somebody told him they're beating up your brother. He'd come out there and he'd make an interview with passion and anger. I mean, how could you not believe it? I mean, Eddie Gilbert, I'll never forget that. He came out there almost in tears, and he was furious because they were beating up his brother, or it might have been his dad. I'm just saying, oh, you know, whatever. Just basically, we worked ourselves into a shoot. How would I act if this was really happening? That's what we did. And the people bought into it. We didn't need scenarios and backstage segments and all this. And I'm not saying anything against that. It's a different business now. It's needed now. In our day, we didn't need that. We just needed the reality of it. You know, like, you know, I think your mother's no good. And if I ever see her, I'm going to tell her to quit calling my house. There was no cell phones then. Quit calling my house. I'm not dating your mother. She's no good. And then you'd be furious. And people would say, how can he say that about so-and-so's mother? And, you know, they would believe it. They can relate to that. They can't relate to all this other bullshit that doesn't, you know, in reality doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, Bruno, you said you didn't cut any heel promos on an old lady at the grocery store, but did an old lady cut a heel promo on you?
Oh my God, everywhere I went. I mean, back then, I'm telling you, it was, nobody understands how seriously the fans of the Memphis territory took what we did. I mean, when I would leave the Coliseum or the Evansville Coliseum or the Louisville Garden or wherever, Nashville Fairgrounds, we didn't have a lot of security like we got now. People were spitting at your car, throwing things at your car, you know, spitting tobacco. I mean, it was just everywhere you went. I remember one time I was in the Alabama territory, which was a very good place, Continental. Right. And I was getting gas at a gas station. It was right after me and Sid, Lord Humongous, did a number on Wendell Cooley, who was one of the big good guys there.
Oh, yeah.
This redneck looking guy walked up to me. I was getting gas. He goes, I know who you are. Where's Lord Humongous? He's not here to protect you, is he? Let me tell you something. I see what you did to Wendell Cooley. Let me see if you can do it to me, you M or F-er and all. I mean, I was legitimately nervous. There was an African-American, little older man there. Not like elderly, but, you know, at that time I was like 26 or something. This guy was probably 45, you know, whatever. He walked over and goes, what's going on here? That's Downtown Bruno. He did this and that to Wendell Cooley. I'm fitting to show him something. The old black guy said, that ain't Downtown Bruno. That's the guy that works for me on my farm. Will you hurry up and get your gas and get back over there? You got to get back over there, man. We need you over there. The guy goes, "Oh man, I'm sorry, you just look like downtown Bruno." I said, "Man, I'm not no downtown Bruno." That guy left, and then the black guy goes, "Man, get on out of here, man. These people, they'll kill you." He goes, "I'll never forget that. I don't know who that man is, or if he's still alive, or if he's gonna watch this or whatever. But if he remembers that, I never forgot that. I even talked about it in my book when I did that book years ago. Wow. I never forget that guy saved my ass out of just kindness."
Yeah.
So that's how it was back then, man. That's how it was.
Well, I mean, not just, not just back then. I mean, Benny gets swarmed going to the gas station today. So
but that's by groupies. That's not by,
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, you don't have people slashing the tires on your rental
including
car.
Tom Brady's wife. She was there the last time.
Be quiet. She's sitting right over here.
I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah. Right. See, it'll be our secret.
Yeah.
I'm
going to tell you, it's pissing me off because 5-6 times since we've been on here, Taylor Swift has been texting me. I'm trying to keep a low profile. She won't fucking leave me alone.
I mean, what is she going to do with Travis Kelce when she's going to have Bruno, right?
Well, that's the thing. That's a big front. He's just being like a cover up for me. That's
really what it is. He's providing cover for you.
Yeah. So the next big celebrity item.
That's Dan and Benny exclusive. You heard it here first.
Yeah. So what's going to be our celebrity company? Bruce Swift? What are we going to call ourselves?
I don't know. Got to think about that one.
And Beyonce, she won't leave me alone either. And she said, "Oh, we'll call it Bruance. We'll call it Bruance."
I mean, she released a country album just to try and get your attention. So
that's exactly right.
You got it all worked out.
Yeah. Hit me some more. Let's talk. I'm having a great time, but this is a lot of fun.
Oh, why?
He wears gloves on it. It's because his cell phone's so hot. Because they're blasting with these text messages.
See now I feel bad. We're having such a good time. Looking, going down the list of notes we wanted to talk about. Unfortunately, I kind of want to get sad and dark for a second. The wrestling world, was rocked by the news about 2 weeks ago. Billy Jack Hayes was arrested for the murder of his wife. And I was just curious if you'd worked with him at all. Any thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, he came to Memphis towards the end of his career and spent, I don't know, I think like maybe 9 months in the territory or whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He came in as a heel, left as a babyface. And I traveled with him some. Well, he'd roll with me a few times. I always got along with him. Never had any issues with him. I see he's been broken down with emotion. He had to walk out of the interview. There he is. Calm down. It'll be okay. But no, I got along with him. We rode together a few times, and when he was babyface and I was a heel manager, a few times he, got physical with me in the ring. Never hurt me. And it was always took care of me in the ring. I mean, I hadn't seen him or heard from him in years and years and years. I don't even remember what year that was that he was in Memphis. I think it was 94 maybe, or 93, something like that. So like 30 years ago. So now I've heard, and it's just me giving you what I've heard, because I don't know, that he was kind of getting like mentally broken down a little bit. Like I heard he did some interviews and he said some odd things like Bill Clinton or something sent him to murder some kids, or did you hear that one about the railroad tracks or something?
I must have missed that one.
Yeah,
I know he got a little off the deep end conspiracy towards the end there, like with just some of his views, but
yeah, he said something. I can't remember exactly, but when I heard about the murder of the wife, I was looking online. Apparently, and y'all can find this later. The listeners or the viewers can look it up or whatever. I can't give you exact details, but roughly, he said something about years ago there was a drug deal gone wrong, and Bill Clinton was involved, and Hillary Clinton. So they sent him to kill the drug dealer or something along those lines. And there was these 2 kids along the railroad tracks, and he watched his co-conspirators kill the kids, but he's seen it himself. I don't know, it's a bunch of ridiculous stuff. But I mean, and like I said, I'm not 100% on par with exactly, but that's the gist of it. You can look it up. Billy Jack Haynes, Arkansas Railroad murder. So that sounded like way out of left field. So
yeah.
And then he was wearing those weird wigs or something when he was doing interviews. Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think he might have maybe lost his marbles or something. Because
I don't think he invested much money in those wigs. That was Walmart has great value. Their generic brand. I think that was a great value hairpiece.
Yeah, but even if you paid 75 cents for it wasn't that great.
Yeah, but they had a BOGO sale,
But yeah, it's just just when I've seen different things he said online, he looked like he might have been losing it. But as far as the murder of the wife or whatever, what can I say? I don't know. I wasn't there. I hadn't been in communication with him or anything, so I don't know anything about what happened. I would feel like maybe that if he did lose his mind, Alzheimer's or dementia or what have you, then that would, I'm not saying justify it by any means, but explain it. How about that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, but he's never said or did anything to me that would make me have any complaints about him on a personal level. So, I can't. I mean, I hope it's all. Well, I mean, I was hoping it all works out. It can't work out. The woman is dead. But I don't know what happened.
So I'm going to make it cheerful again because I know, Bruno, you have your phone on Do Not Disturb. And both Dan and I are numbers guys. I worked in finance all my career. And I am going to put the over when you take that phone up at Do Not Disturb after you're done with Dan and Benny. And I'm going to guess you're going to have 987 text messages from women in need of your services. Dan, what number are you going to, what do you think, Dan?
Well, if it's closest without going over, $1, Bob. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much interview we got left. 30 minutes. Ben's busy. It's got to be at least 600 or 700 easy.
It's going to be in at least between 500 and 1,000.
And we've already, like you said, Dan and Benny exclusive. We established at least half of them are going to be from Taylor Swift. So
that's right. And then well, it's going to maybe I overestimated because Giselle Brady's in the room already. So he's not going to get those texts because she's right there. She can poke him in the ribs.
Right. So, hey, I got a good name for when me and Taylor Swift get together. How about Swoono?
There you go.
I love it.
Perfect. That'll be on Pro Wrestling Tees next week.
Right.
One seller.
Speaking of Pro Wrestling Tees, let's throw another cheap plug in there. You can get Downtown Bruno shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees. There's one that says Downtown Bruno. It's like Mama says it bees that way sometimes. And the other one just says I'm a Downtown Bruno guy. Come on. Bruno needs a new pair of shoes. Go on Pro Wrestling Tees, buy the Downtown.
Well, you got all those women you got to keep up with too. That costs money. It ain't cheap.
Oh no, Taylor Swift takes care of everything.
Oh, she does? All right. Okay. All right.
Hey, by the way, before her lawyers start suing all of us, it's all sarcastic, folks.
Yep, kayfabe.
Right.
So, Bruno, I think if my numbers are right again, I think this is your 45th year in professional wrestling. You started in 79?
Correct. Started 79.
All right.
April 8th, 1979.
All right. So you're almost coming up to the anniversary. So I'm a huge fan of loyalty and longevity. My ex-father-in-law worked for over 40 years at MetLife in Manhattan. And then his father-in-law worked for New York Life for 50 years. And to me, this is not really a wrestling question. It's more of a life question. But what can you give the younger folks out there who are trying to establish a career as far as, dedication and work ethic to be around for a long time?
Well, I really can't speak of any other profession, but as far as our profession, here's the thing. You got to have it all here. Your heart has got to be in it 100%. Okay. I had no other options. I didn't have a plan B, period. I didn't say, well, if wrestling don't work out, I'll do this, I'll do that. No, this was it for me. This was my world. This was my life. It still is. If you're not 100% in it and dedicated to this, do something else. Go back to the house. Think of something else. You got to put your heart and soul. And then, you know what? Maybe I could relate it to another business. I'm not talking about a job. I'm talking about a life, a career. Okay.
Right.
Like you said, your ex-father-in-law with the MetLife. And that's something he obviously cared about. Okay. I care about this business. If you care about music, and that's what you want to be in the music business, dedicate yourself heart and soul to that. If you want to be like I have a really good friend of mine named Jonathan Hearn, who works for the railroad. He's been there for years and years and years. He's got a beautiful wife named Heather, and they're great people. He's very dedicated and loyal to the railroad. He's not like, well, I'll work for the railroad until I find something better. Do what you got to do. Do what you want to do, but do it with all the passion and heart and soul. And I really and truly believe that. That's how you become the best that you can possibly be. I can never say that I am the best manager in the history of the business. I know I'm not. But I know I am the best that I could possibly be.
Right.
Okay. I never took the easy way out. I'll never be as well-rounded as Bobby Heenan. I'll never be as well-versed as Jim Cornette. And I know that. And I don't try to pretend differently. I know I'm better than a hell of a lot of other guys. I'm not going to mention no names. There's some guys that absolutely suck that got a chance that didn't deserve it. They didn't last very long. I'm 45 years in this. I must have did something right.
Something right, yeah.
Well, Bruno, I want to wax nostalgic for a moment, and that was a perfect segue because we're talking about managers, and you were a professional wrestling manager in the heyday of managers. You had Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Cornette, Paul. Then he was Paulie Dangerously. So many greats. Now, when I became a fan. It was Captain Lou, Fred Blassie, the Grand Wizard. Actually, I've been a fan long enough that when I first started watching, it was Bobby Davis and Wild Red Berry, who were two true legends. So, in my opinion, and I think Dan agrees, a manager just added so many dimensions to wrestling. They promoted their guys, and they did a really good job promoting the upcoming events. Many of them actually, you did it too. You actually altered the outcome of a match. And if you really think about it, they were salesmen. They sold their guys and they sold tickets. And, it's one of the things about, I don't watch a lot of modern wrestling. And one of the reasons why, one of the things I think is sorely missing is the use of managers. What do you say about that?
Well, yeah, now, before I answer that, I want to make sure that everyone understands. I'm not plugging to get myself back as a manager because those days are over for me. I don't have the voice left for it anymore or the stamina. But I agree. I don't know what happened. I really don't. It just somehow just went by the wayside. I don't understand because I thought it was a damn good thing. And at one time, there was damn near every heel in WWF had a manager.
Absolutely.
I don't know what. I really and truly, nobody ever laid it out to me why it went to the wayside. It's just, I guess, like a lot of other things in the business, just changed. But yeah, I don't understand why that happened because when I see now that there's no territories, there's no place for a manager to learn, because I do a few independent shots for different people when the price is right, when they need me, and I'm happy to do it. Plus the promotion that I work for, Bluff City Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Mid-South out of Dyersburg, Tennessee, which I'll talk about that before we sign off. But other than that, what these guys are just doing here and there, how are they going to learn to be a manager if they don't do repetition day after day after day after day after day? I was doing it 5, 6, 7 days a week, sometimes twice in one day. So I had no choice but get better or be out of the business. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. And now that there's no territories and these guys can't do it 6, 7 days a week like I did when I was starting out, how are they going to get better? And when you got writers telling you what to say, all you're doing is using your voice to say what the writer thinks. There's no personality to it anymore. You know what I'm saying? You're just reading. All I was an enhanced version of myself, particularly when I was downtown Bruno. But even Harvey Whippleman, nobody wrote me out with, remember this word for word. I couldn't do it. There's no effing way I could have done it. These guys now, they don't have the experience or the wherewithal to just go out and, it's like this here. Okay. Bruno Lauer right here, right? We're sitting here talking, right? You know what? I'm downtown, Bruno. 168 pounds of walking, talking, roping, stomping, downtown destruction. I am that man that walked that barbed wire fence barefooted. Been bad, been good. Dallas, Vegas, and Hollywood. Got a 38 pistol and a 45 frame and a lot of weight on my shoulders, but I got one hell of a brain. Downtown good-looking Bruno. Downtown born and downtown bred. And when I die, I'll be downtown dead. Have mercy. You know why, baby? Because it's like Mama says, it bees that way sometimes.
Nice. Love it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, very much cool. What a soundbite. You know, it's funny. We've talked about it on the show before, and you know, it means a lot coming from Benny because, you know, where he is. A few years ago when WrestleMania was in Tampa, they had a rain delay of about 50 minutes. And of course, you know, they're live, they're trying to kill time and they're going around, you know, we're going to go backstage and talk to this person and talk to that person. And it was so sad to see how many of the talents they tried to talk to that were deer in the headlights without a script or you know, I mean, there were some of them, don't get me wrong, your Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and some of these guys, especially the Ring of Honor types, the ones that came from the Cornette era of Ring of Honor, they could, you know, bam, 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 talk for an hour with a cliff note. But some of these younger guys that came up through the system had nothing. And it's, you know, we talked about it before, you know, a couple times with old school NXT. That was kind of Dusty's thing, was the promo class, because you had so many young talent that just, they couldn't, it's not that they couldn't talk at all. I mean, we've had some Hall of Fame caliber legends that needed a manager because they couldn't talk, but there's a difference between couldn't talk and can't talk at all.
Right. Right. I mean, in my day, it was like Lawler would tell me, all right, you're matching Phil Hickerson against Dennis Condrey tonight. They were former tag team partners. Now they're enemies. And they're going to have a chain match Monday night at the Coliseum. That was it. He didn't say this and say this. He knew how to go out there and wing it and say what needed to be said. And
right.
Even in WWF, before it was Raw Live and SmackDown, whatever. If y'all remember, it was Wrestling Superstars and Wrestling All Stars, or whatever. So they'd have what they call a tape change. They'd have to tape the apron off the ring that said Superstars and change it to All Stars or whatever. So while that was going on, just to keep the audience in the arena entertained, he would send me out there to every night I did this at TV. Just cut a promo to the audience and blah, blah, blah. And once they had all that changed, then Howard Finkel would come out and snatch the microphone away from me and say, your time is up, or something like that. He'd shove me, I'd take a bump and roll out. So Vince knew I was the guy to do it. You know, I'd get out there and let me tell you all you, okay, for example, we're in Providence, Rhode Island. Let me tell you some of all you Providence peons. You don't know what it's like to be as good looking as I am and have all the women chasing me day and night and day. And I'm going to tell you another thing. Last night, this woman was banging on my door till 4:30 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I finally had to get up and let her out, and just, you know, stuff like that. You know?
I like that.
Yeah, we were just wing it and have fun. These guys don't know how to do that.
Well, you know, speaking of managing, and I think it's fitting given the time period we're in. You know, they call this the coin that, you know, the road to WrestleMania. We're coming up on WrestleMania 40, and you talked about, you know, your time managing. I want to go back, what would be 30 years now. You were in the corner of Giant Gonzalez at WrestleMania 9 in his match with The Undertaker. Now, it's kind of two-part question. To many fans, especially now with stadium shows and the hoopla da and you know, the whole weekend with the Hall of Fame and NXT, and it's really a week-long celebration almost. WrestleMania is the Super Bowl, World Series, Stanley Cup, all rolled into one. I'm asking you to speak for everybody, but first part of the question is, was that the way you felt like at these manias? Because that, you know, you've been to other ones too. Like, did you know, like, or feel like Mania was something, or was it really just another day at the office? And part two, that match against The Undertaker, that was his third WrestleMania. It would be almost 20 years before he finally lost a match at WrestleMania. Did you know going in, or could you kind of like, this guy is something special, or did nobody involved just kind of predict how big the Undertaker was going to get?
Well, I don't know what anybody else thought or whatever, but I know for sure that I knew. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Oh, I could tell right away he was special. I hate it when people do that bullshit. You know what I mean? They'd say it about The Rock. They said it about Undertaker. No, they didn't. Nobody knew at that point. I knew he was a really good guy. I knew he was tremendously talented. I knew he was a hell of a worker. I knew he was great. As far as that, I know he was going to get to the status that well deserved. I might add status at that point. No, I didn't know that. I knew he was always going to be on top, and he deserved it. As far as just like people said, oh, what was it like when you first met The Rock? Oh, well, I knew that day it was destined for greatness. Bullshit. You know what I mean? I hate it when people say that. Not just about either one of those guys, but anyone in general, because it's bullshit. Excuse my French.
No.
But I'm never going to be one to pull that. I hate it when, oh, I could tell right away there was something about so-and-so. No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't, I mean, Shawn Michaels, back when he was in Kansas,
Central States, right?
Yeah, and in San Antonio, which I wasn't there, but I heard about him. Oh, he's a really good worker, this kid. You ought to see him. He's really good. Then he went to Louisiana and, was really good. But, I mean, nobody said, oh, that guy's going to be the next one of the top 10 in the history of the business, which he is. Well-deserved. But nobody would have said that back then. And if anybody says it, oh, when I seen him in Mid-South working, opening match, I knew right away he's going to be one of the greatest ever. When people come on a podcast or an interview and say that crap, they're full of, you know what?
Well, it's always after the fact, too. So you're 100% accurate.
Yeah. It's always after the fact,
Yeah.
And okay, how about this? What if a guy really screwed up real bad later in life? Like, for example, Billy Jack Haynes. Okay, we talked about him a while ago. That allegedly or is accused of murdering his wife. Okay, what if I was doing interviews for years? He's the greatest guy ever. Oh, this is a Christian man that loves the world. He's second to Lord Jesus in life, and blah, blah, blah. And then this comes out. How do I backtrack that?
Right.
It's very unexpected. I didn't know him that well. And if it was somebody that I was best of friends with and it happened, I could say, my God, I never seen that coming. But I hadn't seen Billy Jack Haynes in like 30 years. I don't know what's going on in his life.
Sure.
You know what I mean? If it's a guy that I see all the time, then let's talk about it,
Right.
Too many people
Bruno,
try to pretend to be experts on things they have no business trying to be experts.
Right. Agree.
Yeah.
So you were elected to the Board of Aldermen in your hometown of Walls, Mississippi. So I worked in county government down here in Florida for 10 years. We had a Board of County Commissioners, which I think is very similar. They have a similar function. What are your main responsibilities as an alderman? And you're seeking re-election in 2025, correct?
Yes, and I hope everybody will send a donation. At that point, I'll get y'all to plug it. We'll get a site set up to buy signs and shirts or whatever.
We're on Team Bruno.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my responsibility is like we had a meeting last night, which is why I couldn't do this last night as we discussed, before the broadcast. It's basically very important things, don't get me wrong, but very routine things. Okay, like the police department wants to budget for, I don't know, bulletproof vests or a new camera to check who's been throwing the litter out on the bypass.
Right.
And it's going to cost X amount of dollars. There's 5 of us aldermen, and there's the mayor. It's alderman-run city, town of Walls, Mississippi. If 3 of us vote yay, it's yes. If 3 of us vote nay, it's no. The only time the mayor gets to say, no, the mayor can recommend, the mayor can, do whatever. The only time the mayor can cast a vote is if there's not a quorum, which means 3 out of 5. Now, if for some reason, like one of the aldermen can't be there, and there's only 4 of us there, and 2 people vote yay and 2 people vote nay, then the mayor has the tie-breaking vote. Kind of like the vice president, and in a higher level, obviously.
Right.
But you just vote on things like that, or so-and-so wants to build a building here in town. Well, then we have to get the zoning guy to come in and say, well, it has to be so many square feet, or we can get the planning commission to give them an addendum. It don't have to be that many square feet. So, actually, it's important stuff, but it's very, very boring. You know what I mean? Very tedious, very procedural.
Do you guys have to do, like, actually approve the budget for the town?
Yes, every year. Once a year we have a meeting. We have a budget guy that comes in and explains everything to us. And then at the end of that, then we vote on it and say, well, I think maybe we shouldn't budget for this. Let's budget more for the community center. Let's budget less for this, whatever. And just different things. Like, but it's, I enjoy it. I love helping my community. I really hope I get reelected. It ain't just for the money. It's also because I really love my town. Now I'm gotten used to being one of the wise men in the town. I want to stay that way until I get ready to retire. And I've been there practically my whole life. So I enjoy being on the board, and I love it.
This is your first term, Bruno?
My first term.
Yeah. I'm thinking you're a shoo-in next
year.
Yeah.
The only reason I didn't run before, because this is before COVID, I was on the road 300 days a year.
Right.
Yeah. So I couldn't feasibly. But now, the way my schedule is, I can do it, and I want to continue to do it.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on all things politics, but once you get the Dan and Benny endorsement, do you even really need an election at that point?
That's true. I appreciate that. That's all I need.
I mean, you just have do a makeshift concert with one of your lady friends, and that'd be all the funds you'd ever need right there.
I know, but I don't want Gazelle and Taylor fighting, and then Beyonce too. She gets involved. Then Jay-Z will come down and want to fight me, and I don't want to get into all that with them. And
right,
I had my thing with Serena Williams years ago. Now her husband, that it's just hard.
Dan, even as the player, I stand in awe of Bruno as far as the lady action.
And I can't say this enough. It's all a joke, people. Put down your computers. Put down your keyboards. Put down your iPhone. Just watch.
Stop Googling.
Right.
Yes, stop. I've never met none of them.
Too funny. Well, Benny, another great show. Always Absolutely. Fun talking to you. Bruno, final question from me. Other than politics and do you have any? You got anything coming up you want to plug? Anything you want to talk about? Maybe a convention appearance or something like that?
Yeah, I want to tell everybody this. I told you at the beginning of the broadcast about Bluff City Wrestling. Yep. I would hope that everyone would go on the YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel for Bluff City Wrestling. It's a great organization that I enjoy working with and working for. But also, I want to tell everybody there's a Comic-Con in Jackson, Tennessee, March the 2nd, that I'll be involved in. And then also, March the 16th, I'll be at Tupelo Con, Tupelo, Mississippi. It'll be me, Steve Kern, Austin Idol, Hollywood Jimmy, a bunch of local guys, too, a bunch of great guys. We'll be there to meet and greet all day. And then at night is the matches. And it's always a good event. That's in Tupelo, March 16th. I'll be in Ripley, Tennessee for Pro Wrestling Mid-South, March the 1st. And that night I'll be in Dyersburg, Tennessee for Pro Wrestling Mid-South, March the 2nd. And I urge everyone to look up Pro Wrestling Mid-South on their Google or whatever, too, on YouTube. It's a great organization. Golden Boy Greg Anthony, the champion there, is a guy named Brandon Ray, is a great guy. James Elliott and myself as the senior official there. Tommy Boy Jones, Tyler Jordan, just a great group of guys. So I want to take this opportunity to give them national exposure. I think they would enjoy it and appreciate it. And lastly, Downtown Bruno Bookings and Appearances. A good friend of mine named Dan Matthews has that on Facebook. If anybody wants to use me for an appearance, a booking, special referee, meet and greet, whatever, reach out to Downtown Bruno Bookings and Appearances. I personally have no social media, but my friend Dan Matthews runs that YouTube, I'm not YouTube, but a Facebook thing for me. So anybody wants to use me for anything or another podcast or whatever, we'll work it out through him, and I would appreciate it. And in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank y'all for having me. And looks like Ben is frozen. Okay, it looked like you were froze for a second. You didn't move.
No, while we were talking, I just subscribed to Bluff City Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Mid-South.
Great.
Took me about 15 seconds.
Yeah, I got my Bluff City Wrestling, the real Memphis Wrestling shirt on, and I love it, and I know they appreciate it. I appreciate y'all, man, and reach out to Dan Matthews on Downtown Bruno Bookings and Appearances. He will plug this podcast heavily. And if Miller Brewing Company wants to send me a few cases of this for me plugging, I've had like 5 since we've been.
Man, that's the least they should do, bro.
Yeah, that and chicken wings of the world.
Well, that's everybody's got their own traditions, as it were. It's not an official Bruno appearance unless there's beer and chicken wings involved. We know that much.
That's mandatory.
If you believe that, look at Young Rock on DVD or whatever. They made sure that Ryan Pinkston, the great guy that played me on there, every time you see him, he was eating chicken wings and drinking beer.
There you go.
Great stuff. Benny, and another great one. Excuse me, another great one. Bruno, always a pleasure. For Downtown Bruno, Harvey Whippleman, you heard him. Plenty of good stuff to look up online. For the playa himself, Benny Scala, I'm Dan Spasiano. Have a good night, everyone, and we will see you next time we're in the ring.
Thank you, fellas. Appreciate it.